Welcome everybody. Big pleasure to have so many big minds across the table. So thank you very much for coming. Before we begin, let us give a two-line introduction of ourselves so that those of who do not know each other and know where the rest of the group is coming from. So I'm Pawan Chaudhary. I'm the Managing Director of Vigon India.
My name is Anil Bhasin. I work for Havells. I'm working for the last 16 years, and prior to this I worked for Bajaj Electricals Limited for 18 years. So I have experience of only 3.5 decades. And I'm working as a president, still learning every day.
Ali Hosseini, CEO founder of Sinra. We're an IoT network operator, specifically LoRaWAN here in India.
I'm Asim with Daifuku India. Daifuku is a Japanese company. It's the world's largest intralogistics automation company.
So my name is Angila Agrawal. I work with Vodafone Idea, run the enterprise business for Delhi NCR.
Hi, I'm Surendra. I'm the CEO at Best Agrochem. So my background is a little bit diverse. Although I'm in the chemical industry, my background is from DRDO and 15 years at Wipro Technologies.
Hi, I'm Kush. I'm the Chief Technology Officer for Surendra. As I said, we are the LoRaWAN network operator.
I'm Manu Ahuja. I'm the head of Jubilant Industries. We are in the business of adhesive paints and chemicals. And we do have many plants around 5 plants across the country, and we don't adopt smart manufacturing right now.
It's a tough call.
My name is Lakshman Kanuka. I represent a company called Botil Oil Tools. We are into downhole completion tools for regulated flow of crude oil from down below. I look after the corporate affairs at the headquarters and also the overseas operations wherever we have bases.
Yeah, myself Rachna Jindal. I work for Pernod and it is into alcohol manufacturing. So I'm chartered accountant by profession and learning operations and manufacturing. Worked always with the manufacturing companies in past like Honda and Alcatel Lucent. So this is about me.
Myself, Dayal Popli. I am working with Simbhavali Sugar Limited as a Chief Financial Officer. Besides financial function, I am looking after this retail business. We are having a trust brand sugar. Company is having 3 sugar plants, cogeneration and ethanol business. Thank you.
Good morning to all of you. My name is Prabal Chakravarti. I'm Managing Director of Boston Scientific. It's a leading medical device manufacturer in the world. And after alcohol and sugar, I'm the health guy.
Good morning. I'm Rajeev Budgal from Mesco Steel. The company is into steel manufacturing, mining, and also precious metal, developing gold mining project overseas. So, but I'm not per se manufacturing person, but I'm here to learn what are the new trends and how can those be adopted in the existing steel industry setups.
I am C.R. Prasad. I was earlier chairman for GAIL India Limited in the gas business. And now I am after superannuation, we have our own power generation company. And we are gas-based power plant and as well as hydro power plant in Himachal Pradesh, Punjab, and also South India. We are supplying the power to the various industries. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. Myself, KC Bahuguna. I'm representing a company called Shahi Exports. So we are completely backward integrated, 65 factories, 130,000 employees. So we are contract manufacturer B2B. We have 3 verticals for garment and 1 vertical for textile. My role is a group CIO, and we have a lot of initiative in terms of automation and process, supply chain automation. Maybe we'll take some projects from Surendra. We already have some projects POC stage. So I'm here to learn. Thank you.
Okay, great.
Hey, morning everyone. I'm Pankaj. I run the Indian operation for Avery Dennison, which is a US Fortune 500 organization into labels and graphic materials. We have started taking baby steps in smart manufacturing. Happy to learn today how do we kind of start walking and running.
Hi, I'm Anuj Khurana, representing Capital Business Systems Group, CBSL Group as we call it. We are about 70 years old as far as the company is concerned, set up by my father, so we own the businesses. Basically, currently we are into digital transformation fields and we're giving solutions to various industries around the digital transformation area. Right.
Good morning, my name is Bhas Deshpande. I'm from PwC, I'm a partner for a digital operations, which is basically PwC term for a smart manufacturing. Prior to that, I worked with Honeywell for 19 years, basically providing software solutions to the industrial automation space.
Great. So we have manufacturing giants here. We have people who are taking baby steps. We have the biggest employer of the country here, and we have technology solution providers. And we have experts here, and let us begin with Ullas by asking him and keeping this context that most of us want to learn. So we'll go with very simple terms, and whatever jargons we don't understand, let us raise our hand and say, ask. Okay. So, Ullas, can you tell me how would you trace the evolution of manufacturing in the world?
Okay, so I think first I've been treated as an expert here. Let me say I'm still learning this entire space. Okay, kind of pressure on me when so giants, industry giants are sitting here and they have such a wealth of knowledge. Okay, coming to the subject of smart manufacturing. So I think there are different terms here. Let me at least state those so that people voted with it. Smart manufacturing, Industry 4.0, IIoT. Okay, these are the different terms and people use, and digital. These are the people use this very interchangeably, but basically, if you look at what we are talking about the technology-enabled solution for a performance improvement. If someone asks me how do you define it, I will simply say this: what all you are basically using the technology for a performance improvement. So if you really go on, as one asked me to talk about the evolution, there are two words always I talk about: evolution and revolution. Okay, and it's important we know. Normally, we talk about the first two are the more of revolutionary. It all started with 1800 when the steam and water was used as energy. Somewhere in 1800, it started with. Then that called as mechanization. The first wave was mechanization. 100 years it took, and then the next wave came, which is Industry 2.0, people call it, where I think the electricity is used and the first assembly line is used. That's where the concept of manufacturing at one place and the cottage industry is kind of set up. That's I think and it's very important to see the time it took. It took 100 years to get to Industry 2.0. And then come to Industry 3.0, another 100 years, late 1970s time frame, where the computers been kind of came into the picture. And PLC, the programming logic controls, automated small machines also entered the factories. Where I think some of the niche work is given to this kind of systems which are programmed, and that's the Industry 3.0. Now we are talking about Industry 4.0 or smart manufacturing. Interesting part of it, when we are talking about Industry 4.0, we are into the journey. While we talk about historically 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, we are talking when actually it's done. We are more taking a view of historical view. While today we are in journey, we don't know the end point. It's also important if you look at the time frame. It took 100 years each, but from 3.0 to 4.0, the time has really gone. It's around 70, 80 years. And while we are talking 4.0, if you go Google, you find already 5.0 we talk about. So even we are not exited, now even entered into reality, we are already. That's the way I think the space and that the smart manufacturing is.
Great. So 1800 was mechanization, 1900 was electrification, 1970 was computerization, and now it is big data, IoT, AI, all coming together in the manufacturing space and altering it 4.0.
Connected device and analytics are the two keywords we can talk about it.
And fifth, let us not go to fifth right now, it is about mass personalization, mass customization. But let's not go there because I think the end of the spectrum of fourth is itself fifth. Okay, so Second question now, last. What are the factors catalyzing it? One or two questions here and then I'll open up the discussion. What are the factors catalyzing 4.0? Sure.
So I think I said three things. One and most important, the technology also. Right? The way technology is evolved so fast and the way I think it's available. Like we can take example of the mobiles and kind of so many examples where the technology is what it's being a part and parcel of your life. It's also because of the volume is affordable also. I think that's the one. Two, I also see the competition, the pressure of doing more with less. Is also forcing people to use technology because I think there is a peer competition, there is a market, customer demand competitive perspective also, customer are more demanding. That is also people need to be more innovative to go away from the traditional way of working to the new way and using the technology. And the third and most important is the new generation. How you will retain and attract the talent. This new generation, the millennial people, they will not even join the organization if they see the organizations are not tech savvy. And talent is such an important state because now the new people, you say that the moment in a 1 year, 2 years, they start using mobile, and now look at when they come to the workforce. It's really important for each organization that they take this technology and enable solution so that they attract talent. I think these are the three factors I'll say the catalyzation for the
Great. So technology evolution, competition for productivity also. And in the West, the productivity gains are just plateaued. And every manufacturing revolution brought in 30% kind of productivity gains, and they are looking for it now. And the new generation, very well, you have said, I was reading that some companies which are offering Google Glass technology, Boeing, etc., the leading technological institutes of the world have queued up with their people to get an admission there because they know that the knowledge of these technologies will be the next step for their career, will be actually a staircase for their career. So now opening up the discussion, what will attract, or before I open up, what will attract the industry to smart manufacturing in us?
I think I'll say it's more of a do more with the less. From the industry perspective, I think the ROI is very critical. And in Indian context, it's more important that what is a return. So I think when I'm interacting with various people in this, every talk about, people have started the journey, this is not something new. But I think first point came that, okay, what is my return on investment? How I measure a digital intervention has actually impacted on my top line or bottom line. I think the moment this has a different kind of meaning for different industries. When I say B2C versus B2B, has a different, even within those segments, you have different industries like a steel manufacturing perspective, where the way they will look at it from the digital interventions versus someone who is very close to the customers, where the mobility is so important. I think so. It's very important that each industry need to figure out that area which is most impactful for them, so that I think they have that faith on those technology and it will spread up. So I think first identifying those, or I would say, low-hanging fruit which are required for digital interventions. Start the journey, and once you start the journey, I think it will just evolve out.
Okay, so great. Though of course it is. As human beings, we can assess short-term costs better than long-term benefits. So you are saying that go with those low-hanging fruit. We'll come to that in a moment. What sectors will this wave touch first? This wave of smart manufacturing, which industry sectors will it touch first?
In my view, it has to touch all the sectors, but just to prioritize, the first one is the automobile, the second one is the electronics, and third one is the medical, especially in the prosthetics. Automobile, when I say, I was interacting with one of the person who manufactures the lamp for the automobile. And in the lamp for the automobile, there are now in the future cameras and sensors. In the night, if you are taking a turn, and there's a black spot or the light is not there, then the sensor and the camera will give you guidance that there is some black spot or some object which you are not even seeing it. So that kind of an intelligence also is being incorporated into the automobile. And in automobile, what you have seen is that we don't believe in like the electric car or the driverless car. Still today, if somebody asks me in Delhi, how can you drive but things will happen. In electronics, when I say I am from a lighting background, so I'll just give you an example is that all the electronic devices will be connected through the data cables, not through electrical cables. All through data, and all this lighting would give you an intelligence that whether the room was occupied, whether it was booked or not. In all the multi offices and all, you have many conference rooms which are booked and not being used. So air conditioning is being used, lighting is being used, and the space is underutilized. So all this would be through the smartness of the things and all. So in the fixture, what we manufacture, in the factories, we will have to incorporate a chip into the fixture itself so that the fixture can communicate. And third thing in the medical, what I was referring is that prosthetics in the artificial limbs or the other things and all, with the 3D printing, you will have to have a precise kind of limb or the things for your bone or the body. That's the kind of the things which I think is.
Very good, very good. So somehow automobile was there when the buggy was being displaced, and again the automobile has emerged as another milestone to take us to the next revolution. And what you were talking about, that black spot, not only that, I was told that not only that car will know, that car will relay the information to the manufacturing plant, and all the cars which will be sold in that city would know that there is a bump there on the road. So that's really great. You'd like to add something to this, Ali?
Yeah, sure. I'd like to actually take a step back, based a little bit on what Ulpa was saying. The transition from 1.0 to 4.0, the first three industries revolutions or evolutions really were about speed, about how do you produce faster to get products out quicker to make more money. When you got to 3.0 with the automated production lines and robotic arms and that kind of thing, they pretty much sorted out the speed. So in 4.0, it's not more about speed because it's a fractional reduction now. Like you were getting exponential speed increases from 1 to 2 to 3. But when you got to 4, there's not that much more speed you can get out of the equipment that's being produced. So how do you look at it? And what Stanley Morgan came out and said, 50% of the people that they did a survey on that were running businesses and manufacturing were looking at operational efficiencies. So what they're trying to do is find out how to save money on the back end and the operational costs versus production speed. There is some things you can do. So like when you mentioned segments, logistically, you can do a lot of things right now to increase speed, but the overall production is something that you'll have to look at. How do you save money on consumption of energy? How do you reduce maintenance efforts on your equipment, degradation of the equipment? How do you monitor the health of that? Those are the things that are people starting to look at now that I think is more of a 4.0. The wireless communication. So I wrote down a few things. Some of the driving factors that I see is still speed. Speed will always be there. Low cost is how do you reduce a lot of those operational costs? The solutions, are the solutions going to be low cost? There's one thing that a lot of people maybe haven't considered, but that last mile. In 3.0, there's a lot of wires, a lot of localized servers that are being installed, computers that are giving you insight their presence in the facility. But then you want to connect that to another facility. That's quite a challenge, right? You have the internet, but you still need to have. So we were talking to one big manufacturing in India, and they've got 8 hectares of land, and they don't have internet access to the whole 8 hectares. So they're trying to understand how to address that last mile of connectivity. So that's another thing that we're seeing is being pushed in 4.0 is wireless communications that can provide the insight that you need to do that operational efficiency. And then the last thing you mentioned was analytics, real-time insights, so that on the fly, on an app on your phone, you can start to do business-making decisions with your directors, with your executives to figure out where you're saving money, where you're not saving money, what your return on investment looks like, and that kind of thing.
I think very well, very good intervention. I would like to ask you here, can you explain to all of us, when you have spoken about greater efficiencies, that means less wastage also. So what is the difference between subtractive manufacturing and additive manufacturing?
So you have to add to subtract, right?
Okay.
So,
go ahead.
So what we're looking at is the addition has to be at a sub-minimal cost and not too big of an impact, so that you can still subtract from your expenses. So what we're seeing in like the utility space, 95% of smart water meters are going to actually be retrofits, where they don't want to replace the meter. They just want to find some device that they can integrate into the existing meter to make it smart. And what we're seeing is in the manufacturing, retrofit's actually a brilliant thing to do, where you can add but still have a huge subtraction. So you take simple devices that can integrate, like we're talking with you all and a couple of others, an RS-232 port. How many electronics out there have an RS-232 port? So you take an RS-230 port, plug it into whatever equipment you're trying to monitor, and then transmission that information over the air wirelessly. And it's a very cheap device. So you don't have to buy this huge, massive equipment from the additive perspective. So that's how I perceive it.
What would you like to add to this with us?
Yeah, so I think it's a more of a I'd say do more with the less in terms
More
of
with less.
yeah. So that I think that this is where the mantra what we need to look at it. The plants are there, and I think again I look at it in two perspectives. Look at the manufacturing perspective. I have my process plant. My plant is running, correct? I'm still producing and I'm doing the business. Now suddenly when I want to see that okay, there is something coming. Something is basically, and people are talking about it, this digitization and stuff. So I also need to modernize my plant. But how much? Where level I should go to? It's very important from the perspective that each one has to do their own assessment, and we call it basically where are we currently, and do a comparison with the industry benchmark, with the air industry, and then look at this journey. It's very important. Otherwise, what I have seen multiple times, people do have very good dashboards, fancy dashboards, but am I really taking it? Am I executor really taking decision based on that, or is it just I'm still using the paper base, and the people when you go to shop floor, they are still using the code and they are very comfortable with that. So it's a very important element that when you say talk about the technology adoption, and I think I always talk about the both the shop floor and keep the people at the shop floor. When the moment they get a confidence on it that yes, this is making my life easy, the change what we talked about will be so easily done, because it's one of the most important elements of the change management. I have seen so many fantastic solutions be deployed and are completely failed just because of this one element change. There is no confidence. And I can give enough of those examples where you could clearly see that the wastage happening, but because there is a weighing machine need to weigh a certain product, and then you actually look at your finished good, and you just need to do a math balance in that, okay, I prepared a jumbo, like in the paper industry maybe, and when I actually dispatch, and then there is so much of wastage. The moment you link, and this is a connected device, when the moment you link these two, I think I sorted out, I know exactly how to wastage. And what people do basically, first they will find out how much I have dispatched, and they will go back and put that as a weight of the jumbo which I have prepared. It's gone. A small hole into the entire system, and that's where this system brings lots of transparency. When you put these automated solutions, what it also brings the efficiency out. It also brings lots of those black holes currently will be visible to the management, and I think the efficiency will be much better.
So we need to buy the people's trust that all these sensors which are coming, which will monitor you now, will increase your efficiency. We will not use it to penalize you. We will make sure this will also expose adjacent and hidden skills in you, which can be used tomorrow when parts of your tasks are tasks of your job are taken to automation. So, and also maybe the control of the data is left to them, as many companies are trying that only when the control of the data is left to the employees, then do they accept all those monitoring and this thing. So,
can I comment?
Please.
I think your prompt on additive manufacturing, and additive manufacturing has got very strong connotations with 3D printing.
Absolutely.
And I think it's important that we talk about that. That's going to actually bring in mass customization, which is a mega trend, especially for the industries which are closer to consumer, as mentioned last some time back. This is going to be a revolution. Additive manufacturing can be a big differentiator for last mile servicing of the customer and mass customization.
So, subtractive manufacturing, as I understand, or I have also read a little, is when you chisel out something from something else, so there is a lot of wastage.
True.
And additive manufacturing is when you just mold that layer by layer, only as much space, using only as much material is required, so there's hardly any wastage.
Absolutely. And it's happening today. I think we all have heard about what Adidas is trying to do in their some facilities. So
in Germany, and it is planning to do that in India. Go ahead, please. Sorry.
No, I'm done.
Okay, great. Any other points?
And I would like to add, like, how we can increase the customer experience also. Like when we are thinking of like smart way of connecting all the devices. Okay, how we can make the operational efficiency. Then how I can increase the customer experience also on the manufacturing side. Experience which we are giving after the end device which has been produced for the end user.
So how can the responses which are coming from customers be used to make a better product? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, so I think, okay, so this is where I think I bring this, there are four kind of levels of industry we talk about, okay, and this is a framework, the PwC language here. But we say there's a company called as digital novice, there is something called as horizontal collaborator, there is something called as vertical collaborators, and there is something called as digital champions. We say in all industry there are four, and the name can change, but it's something similar you see. So if you really look at it, and exactly what point you say, who is the digital champion? Digital champions are those where the ecosystem is connected to their customer also. Like if digital novices are the one who has implemented small solution and efficiency programs and running that we call as a more of a digital novice. The people who has done a collaboration, vertical collaborator, basically within a function, like my sales function is there, and fully collaborate. So there is a digital solutions implemented, but within a function. When you go to horizontal, basically I'm saying my other functions like my maintenance, my operations, my sales, my planning, all they talk to each other on the technology platform. That's a horizontal collaboration. That's the next level. So within the functions, yes, an HR and the finance, all of them people will have some digital solution implemented, but that still stays within that. Like maintenance is the second part of manufacturing. Maintenance is operation to our critical function we talk about in the operation perspective, and the planning also the third one. How they collaborate with each other. That's the next level. And they talk, and we always talk about the single truth. They don't talk on a phone or email. They basically, everybody has the same visibility on their desktop. Like, okay, the critical pump is shut down, my operation has stopped. The operation guy exactly know which part is ordered, when we're going to come, when will my plant start. You don't need to call the maintenance guy. And that's where the smart manufacturing will come. And the third one, where your point came, for customer experience. The order which I'm making is for some customer. My customer also has a visibility and a single truth he has that this is my promise today, and on this date I'm getting my material. And that's where the digital champion. So this is the way I think I see the progression people are going. And we talk about Industry 5.0. Industry 5.0 basically people talk about where the customers start kind of customizing. And the example is given in the auto industry also that going one of the days I will order the standard. I will say, no, I want this wheel, I want this, and you can automate the car the way you want. I want this color, and you give the choice to the client. He selects it, and he says yes, and that order goes to the plant. That's the level we're talking about. So I think customer experience is very important parameter.
Yeah, just a moment. First with Prabal and then you, sir.
Yeah, so I had the opportunity of listening to Boeing CEO talking about smart manufacturing just 2 days back. A little bit of a contradiction in the dialogue because we are talking about more with less, cost efficiency, okay? So these are some of the points which came out very strongly. So one of the points that he raised out there that there are a tremendous number of technologies which are there, which they can use. But the question that he raised was that is the customer today in a position to pay for it, okay? So now on one hand, we are talking about operational efficiency. So they're talking about a flight which is there and there's a part which is defective but not really dangerous to the flight, okay? But that information automatically comes down and they find out in the supply chain where that particular spare part is there so that the entire flight is not disrupted in the next port. They make it available and so that kind of stuff. he was talking about. But he was referring that the biggest thing today is that what kind of investments we have to make to bring that kind of smart technology into the manufacturing, and whether the customers are really willing to pay for it. So is that a challenge that you see in terms of investments?
Absolutely. And this, again, I'd say this is very industry focused. Different industry has a different challenge and the way they need to work out. Some industries need to be really more, which are the legacy industries which we believe that I'm into the airlines industry, which is very sensitive industry, correct? Airlines is one of the most sensitive industry globally, correct? Whatever happened, they're the first one to hit. So challenges they face versus some of the legacy industries, like I went to the foundry and they're basically they make critical equipments, okay? And when I go and talk to that guy, they said they have one vendor with a 30-year-old, and he said, okay, we are basically talking about what digital interventions we can do. He said, this guy is 30 years experience. Now, can you replicate that? So they are very happy what they have. They are not ready to actually change because they believe digital solution is not going to help them. And kind of business they are into, I said, maybe possible that we can have another vendor and for 5 years and you train him and you can continue versus you really go to the robotic arm and go with a very fancy solution and is it my customer is going to pay the same point what you're saying is very important. So absolutely, like I gave a simple example and I think that analogy will help. Like we have gone with the camera, 48 megapixel camera, and if I'm going to print a 4x6 kind of thing, a 4 megapixel camera is enough for me. What that 48 megapixel camera is useless to me. Technology is there, people are coming, the market is available, but I think the people need to choose basically what I am going to use it for. And is it really? So that's what I say in the statement, modernization, fancy, my plant is digital. How much? Is definitely each industry need to have their own benchmark in that this is what it means for me, for it today, and keep it future in mind. That the way the fields are changing, I say that workforce and all, those are important areas. Currently, I think more focus on today because very little information available for tomorrow, how it's going. Because everybody is anxious about, people know the change is happening, but what change and how it's going to impact on my industry, I think still there is a little kind of a craziness in there. You say something.
In the smart manufacturing, we are now talking of technology, we are talking of automation, we are talking about 4.0 and all this technology. Countries like Japan or USA, where they are developed countries, where manpower is a problem, and they are going more and more for this technology oriented and bring the cost down for the production. But a country like India, which has come very late into this manufacturing, even today, in spite of Prime Minister telling make in India, manufacturing is not picking up. And we have got a huge manpower. The young boys and girls, we are producing millions of engineers in the country. There is a great concern when I meet that sort of people. To get them jobs is a big issue. So I want to flag experts whether India has got a mix of the technology and employment. This is a big concern at various places when we talk how to employ the huge number that is coming up. Keeping again technology, again India has to catch the technology with other countries. I am flagging a sort of this mix, how India can proceed in the next 10, 20 years with this background.
So who would like to answer this question?
I can try to take a stab at it. So Make in India is a great effort to generate initiatives in the country, but it's increasing the cost on devices that are ready to solve manufacturing problems today because the majority of that was already developed in the Japans and the US and the Europe. So when you import them, already 40% cost goes up, right? So now you have to look at, okay, let's do the digital thing, let's do the Make in India thing. How do we address getting these devices, these solutions in India at a low cost? It's education. You have to teach these cutting edge technologies to students and to existing workforces that are building it. We do things with universities. We're doing workshops. We're providing equipment for free for them to do research and development, but that's still another 5 years out, right? Those students have to go through their learning before they come into the market. You mentioned something that was quite interesting. The top segments that you saw in manufacturing would drive the Internet of Things that you mentioned, electronics. I went and met a manufacturing company that has shifted their manufacturing to electronics, and they're building 35,000 electric meters a week, and they're smart electric meters. So that's their main business driving factors right now. So they're taking this whole Make in India initiative, and they've now onboarded, they've trained, they've hired really brilliant students out of the top colleges to build this. They're doing everything from the 3D mold to the board design to the plastic making, and you name it, from end to end, all the way to the box, and then the box sends out. So I do see there's a shift there, but it's going to be a little bit of a lag as long as the device ecosystem is still developing. You're not going to see the right prices. The smart manufacturing will be a little bit slower because at the end of the day, everyone is a businessman and they're trying to save money and they're trying to find out the best way to do things. And they're not willing to pay top dollar for devices which are being imported out of the country. So we are, Kush and I are talking to companies that are startups and trying to help them create products that can solve industrial IoT efforts and other sectors as well. And it's coming, which will generate jobs and so forth. An interesting thing I think 13,000 new jobs got created recently because of drones. So in every village, they've trained 2 people to fly a drone and do some agricultural tech-related technologies, and that generated 13,000 new jobs because of drones and just educating 2 people in each village. So technology can push it. It's how do you use it and how do you educate the people with the proper tools.
So your bringing in of this word agriculture reminds me of some statistics which proves how history has moved in similar circumstance. In 1800s, when agriculture got mechanized and industrialization came, from then in 100 years, the farm labor went down by 90%. Where did they go? They moved to the factory. And how did they move to the factory? They moved to the factory because the entire education system was changed. Everybody was given high school education. So they moved to the factory. From 1970s till date, 75% of the manufacturing factory population has moved to service industry. How it has moved because of these changes in education, etc. So we were unfortunate that the first and the second industrial revolution we could not ride. But we unself-consciously rode the third revolution, which was the computer revolution, and we created wealth for India. IT sector grew from 2% of GDP to 12% of GDP, where GDP itself tripled. So I feel that this sector also we should approach with some boldness, as well as some preparation on the education front, as well as making job licensing norms more fluid, because people will have to migrate from one job to another job. Those job licensing norms should not be so stringent. They should allow for mobility, and online training also should be encouraged by all our companies, for our people as well as for ourselves. Prabal.
I think, Pawan, you raised a very pertinent point. I think someone on my right was also talking about it. And the bigger challenge, if you make a comparison with the past today, the change is happening too quickly. So the education that we are providing, especially in India, has got no relevance with what the kind of work they're going to do.
Correct.
And it is impossible for the education system, current education system, or perhaps any future education system to keep pace with the changes that are happening. So there is one point of view which is saying that the manufacturing, all the smart manufacturing setups or plants which are there all over the world or in India, they have to become the new universities. Okay? And if they don't provide that, they'll always keep on complaining that we don't get the right talent. It is impossible for the education system.
Agreed. Your point.
So, couple of points I wanted to bring, and this is based on what Ullah said and what you said, Mr. Prasad. We get very excited about any new technology that comes in. People start talking about smart manufacturing. Everyone starts saying, "Hey, I need to be on the smart manufacturing bandwagon. We need to start doing that." But I think, and I've seen this happen. I started doing cloud way back in 2001. So I know what the implications were when people started talking about what was called something else at that time, but effectively cloud. I think it's very important to remember why you want to look at smart manufacturing, if you want to look at it at all, right? Because one may say, I'm going to be able to connect my manufacturing equipment, I'll put sensors, I'll be able to monitor temperatures, so on and so forth. But what do you fundamentally want to do with it? That's the question that one needs to ask. Is it either delivering better efficiencies in terms of the manufacturing process? Is it improving customer experience, the point that you were raising? Is it bringing down costs? Is it improving safety of the employees or the overall operation of the business? We need to factor that in. And if it doesn't dovetail into any one of those, there's fundamentally no point in doing it, right? Because what would happen is, and all of us are accountable to our stakeholders. We would do something, we would go down that path, and we would stand up and say this failed. But we would not acknowledge the fact that it failed, not because there was something wrong with what we're trying to achieve. It was because the end goal that we were trying to achieve was not linked to what we were trying to do. And I've seen this. We work as Vodafone Idea, and in my previous roles, I was mentioning to Anil that I've worked with a lot of startups. We have seen this mistake being done repeatedly by companies that get very excited about something new that's happening, jump onto it, and then struggle when they're trying to do that. Another point why smart manufacturing is really starting to catch on, I think it's 3 or 4 areas that have happened in the last few years, and you mentioned that moving very fast. The fact is, analytics has really caught on, right? And the other piece, however, is also the fact that connectivity, and it's connectivity, not necessarily mobility, because all you are bothered about is, can you connect that device sitting in somewhere in the factory to a central point where all the data can be collated in a secure manner. Security is the second piece. So it doesn't really matter if it's IoT, because Industry 4.0 is often associated with IoT, but fundamentally it's not IoT, it's connectivity that's important. It could be RFID, like you were mentioning, right? It could be the Lloyd's ACs talk about Wi-Fi connectivity, for example, right? It doesn't really matter. There are lots of geezers that talk about the fact you can do it remotely.
The customer is not actually using it.
Yeah.
It's for the buzzword.
It's more buzzword.
People
fundamentally
switch on the geyser through a Wi-Fi.
Or the AC through the app before they reach home.
Washing machine through a Wi-Fi.
Correct. Doesn't really happen like.
You are a domestic servant in the house, so
yeah. You will still, you will call up the domestic servant and say, "Usko on karo, please switch that on." Right? Correct.
So those are US, we don't have domestic.
Maybe domestic.
We have to do it ourselves.
But then again, the point that Mr. Prasad was mentioning, right? There's enough people who are seeking employment in India who may justify the ROI over a connected device, right? So the point is, security is really important, and it's caught on. The standards have phenomenally improved, so you feel more secure about the fact that your car is now connected to an IoT device to someone sitting somewhere who cannot stall it in the middle of the highway when it's going at 80 kilometers an hour, right? You're more confident about that. Analytics, again, you collect a lot of data, right? We get excited about the amount of data we are collecting. What do you want to do with it, right? Do you really believe it will result in the 3 points I raised earlier, convenience, cost, or efficiency or safety? If it's not, don't collect that data. Don't waste your time getting into it. I come from a business which benefits if you connect, but I've often worked with organizations who've gone down that path and then have come back and said, sorry, this project is not going to work because we really haven't seen the fundamental benefits. So we often ask these questions, and I think it's important to ask these questions of yourself. What are you really going to do with it? Because it's exciting. Right?
Very good. I think we should have a discussion on this, because this will be a critical point which will determine as to what we will go back thinking about smart manufacturing. Ullas, come on.
So I think maybe it's good to get some point of view from the people who are manufacturing perspective. What are their point of view in terms of I am running my plant currently and I'm doing it efficiently. What are those areas I see, or do I really see it is more of a need which is coming from the outside force? It's outside in or inside out? Is it because everybody talking about it? There is so much happening. We go to the forum, we talk about it. So what we are doing, we go back, we check our people, and kind of create maybe, as you say, it may not be required actually. You may be doing something very efficiently today, and by bringing technology solution, you may not have even the improvement may be very implemented. So maybe
there is
good point of view.
I would like to say, we have in the last 15 years, we have put up 10 plants in northern India, starting from a very small factory, starting from Bhasin to Alvar and all. We have got a big plant like 100 acres in wire and cable where we have a huge manpower. You have rightly said, we have to see how we have to use it. We have put up the latest plant of air conditioners of Lloyd. There we had a competition with the multinational like LG, Samsung and others, and we had to showcase that we are also a multinational. We have a big fancy plant, we have IoT, we have all these big words and all. But I was talking to the manufacturing head, he said, if in the existing plant you want to replicate the simple same system, you will have to do the same kind of an investment, which is very huge, and you can't do it. You have rightly said, and there is no need of it. So for the new plant, you can still think of it. You have rightly said, there is a mindset. People, those who are 50 plus, they feel that they are not having the technology, and the people, those who are millennials, they are pushing the technology. So there is a gap between both of them. They feel that if we don't do, we'll be left behind, which is not even required. So every industry has to logically think, and I discussed within the group that what is this IoT connected air conditioners or you have a remote control, you can control it. And just kind of.
I just want to make a very short point. It's very interesting what you mentioned. A friend of mine, he automated his factory completely. One of the factories that they have somewhere in Maharashtra. They had 200 employees earlier. The factory burned down. So now they have 20 employees and it still delivers 3 times the production it used to do earlier. So a drastic event like that happened because of which he automated the whole plant. But I hope it doesn't happen to any one of us sitting here. But that's the way you can automate.
Just a moment. I will bring in the points here because we need to conclude this with all the information which is there present on the table. Okay, go ahead, please.
Right. So I would just like to, I guess, answer a few of the questions we started off with. So I think one of the questions was which industry would embrace this at first. You rightfully said automotive, electrical, right? But so a little bit of what we do, right? So apart from the devices and stuff, what Daifuku does is basically the material movement from point A to point B within the 4 walls of a factory or a distribution center is what we do. So that's also automation, right? We started with mechanization and now it's become automation. And which industry? So basically, if you look at your selling price in a competitive world, it's determined by your raw material cost, your R&D, your logistics, and then your profit. Right? While your profit is the only thing that is a variable that you can adjust if you want to enter a market or gain market share. But your raw material and R&D pretty much are fixed if you have to be competitive. It's global purchasing and the R&D spends have to be same. So the only thing left is logistics. So in any manufacturing, the logistics of it is also very important where automation can play a lot of part in the smart manufacturing process. So for example, so I've been here now 9 years. So I moved from the US. I've been here 9 years. And initially when I'd go and tell somebody about what we do, they'd be interested, they'd be excited, and they would ask us for a quotation. And after that, because the ROI was never justifiable, they would never call back. But what has happened is in the last 5 years, things have changed. And last year was amazing. Last year is when we had a lot of inquiries. For the first time in the last 8 years, we actually had inquiries coming in because people wanted to know. So what people want to know is about not necessarily remove people, but in a manufacturing unit, take away the most unpredictable part. So whenever you have, because every business is seasonal, so they have their peaks and then their trusses. So in your peaks, you need a lot of people. So they end up hiring a lot of contract labor. And those are the people who they can count the least on, but they need them. So a part of that smart manufacturing extension of the automation is now they're automating that process per se, so where the unpredictability goes out, right? In the manufacturing unit we've done for a customer. So what we've done is not necessarily reduce any people, but we have put in automation for work in progress. So you've got your different manufacturing lines and each have their own peaks and trusses, because of which you have a lot of material sitting next to a particular machine. But you may not see it in your inventory, and then you might end up ordering more, but it was sitting there all the time. So by putting it together in a work in progress offer, you're able to always see in real time what you have. You're picking solutions, as the world has customers, right? So in logistics, we've seen the lot sizes become smaller and smaller and smaller because there's more varieties now. So because of which the goods to person picking, which is what normal it is, person to goods is changing to goods to person, because so that you can increase the speed and throw everything out. In the world of e-commerce, right? Apart from manufacturing, everybody needs now, a T-shirt like a pizza. In the developed world, they're competing for how fast can I take stuff out.
They're saying that we'll eventually download dresses. That's my fear. My wife will, rather than ordering from Flipkart, will start downloading.
Exactly.
Okay, you were saying something.
Yes. I thought I will give a little slightly personal perspective of this particular situation, and I'll add to what Mr. Prabal said and Dr. Prasad said. In the Indian context, ROI and investment is seriously something to worry about. Being in Wipro Technologies for 15 years, I was a part of product engineering services, and one of the things that part of my job was actually on selling the IoT systems and the automation systems and this to actually take over the complete plant manufacturing operations. So that was one of the things we did. The last 3 years, I actually ended up setting up a chemical processing plant, and with a sort of 100 odd reactors, and in 6 months. The challenge which I'm seeing now, and it's a real challenge which I see, is the systems which I used to sell, I find it too difficult to buy. So what we were trying to sell to customers, being a customer, I can't afford it. I can't convince myself that the ROI is sufficient for me to be able to get it.
Train the sellers now.
Any other points? Any other hands here?
Just to echo what you said, I think the key point from a manufacturing standpoint as a customer, I think it has to be looked at not as an end, but as a means to an end. Right? I think that's somewhere the obsession with that I'm thinking about FOMO, fear of missing out, that I'm not using enough of smart automation in my plants. That can sometimes become a deterrent to your eventual ROI and productivity that you're looking at. I think as customers, one has to always look at as a typical make or buy versus decision, make versus buy. So any process, any ROI that you are looking at, any improvement that you're looking at, you have to evaluate whether it's okay to do with people or to do with automation, or you need more smart automation. So I think to be over obsessed about it can also lead to kind of negative connotations for a particular business, as Anil clearly said that. So we should be very obsessed about it. Having said that, I think it's important what is also happening from a global perspective. Most of the businesses are becoming global, and customers are becoming far more demanding, and it's becoming a more level playing field, which is in any case putting pressure on you to making your costs more effective, etc. And you have to lean to such solutions which are making your product more efficient. I think what is really lacking today, especially in India, is that the manufacturers of the system are not talking from what the end customer really wants, not connecting very well to see whether it's really fitting and really right. So you are having a great technology, maybe it works in a high cost environment, and then you try and fit in that in a low cost environment. It's not really coming as a very viable solution. So there's a lot of resistance there from a end customer perspective. So I think if you're a manufacturer of IoT solutions, you need to focus more on how to make it more effective and look at what the customer needs. And if you're a user of technologies, you have to really look at make versus buy decision, whether you really need it and not get over obsessed about it. I think that's the way to balance that. Yeah.
So in any company, we can divide the people into two groups. One who are selling and others who are supporting the sales. So as a manufacturer or manufacturing entity, so there I agree with what you said that how as a manufacturing department we can support the bottom line and the top line of our company. So our solution cannot be different from what the company vision is or the growth or what the customer wants, right? So probably we are looking at so many technology, hearing about 3D and all. Probably these are not suiting to what our customer want, right? So when these are very attractive things, like okay, I want to learn IoT, I want to learn 3D, I want to do this. But at the same time, when we adopt, yes, the question of ROI, payback, all this will come. So, but at the same time, it is important that we need to see whether even our vendors, whether they can adopt that technology, because probably we are getting some customized thing because of the seasonality, because of the labor availability during some peak seasons and all, those are not there. So whether our vendors can also adopt these technology, that can be also a channel, channel to adopt this technology. At the second time, and at the same time, we always look at the customer sometimes and ignore the vendor information. Because in Pernod Ricard, we have seen that we can have the better serviceability if our vendor they have the right information at the right time. So they know that, okay, I want to serve my customer in the peak season this much. If they have this information and collaborative information in advance, they can serve us better and then we can deliver as better. So some platform should be there which can communicate from vendor to customer.
Okay, any additive point, then I'll ask you to comment.
So, can I?
Yeah, please.
So, I would like to share what we are driving in Shahi. I mean, Ullas has already said, like on the smart manufacturing side, integration is one part. Then the second part is analytics. Third, because we will be having connected devices, so cyber security is another area which ignored. And fourth is the change management, the transformation. So textile and the garmenting is another, the special category where, you can consider it as a unorganized sector where one way the people who are communicating to the customers like Walmart and Zara and that way, and we also have another category which is most of the blue collar employees. So on the integration side, vertical integration and horizontal integration is very, very important. So just to give you one example, like we receive 400 pages purchase order from Walmart. So for the merchants, like they takes 2-3 days just to categorize shipping to 60 countries. So how can we optimize that? So using the technology, we are able to convert the whole purchase order within 2 minutes, like it is converted. So it's about the optimizing the whole processes and also the other processes. Yeah. And the second point is like horizontal integration. How can you integrate to your customers, like or suppliers? We have the auction mechanism. We also have like the ASN advanced shipping notices whenever the supplier is shipping the fabric. Analytics part is also very, very important where if you are thinking like production area, if we have POC stage where we are going to use RFID devices and connecting like sewing machines which can talk about predictive maintenance. So how we are going to accumulate that data and take insight of that part. And thirdly, the security part is also very, very important, like have the right connectivity, right security mechanism, because we also got attacks from the hackers, and a lot of people are also. So your important data, somebody ransomware is attacked and their important data is converted. So you also need to take care of that part. And fourth part, like we recently implemented G Suite. So 8,000 employees are working from shifting from your Outlook to Chrome-based email. So it was very difficult for them to understand, like it's a complete change management. So just a start. So we are considering these 4 areas, and I think companies can evaluate then what is the right process where they can think about the IoTs or intelligent devices, and then ROI is also very, very important part. So we produce 500,000 garments a day. So we think that even the 5 cents is added to one garment, so that will add up to the bottom line.
I was just mentioning something very like what Mr. Bahuguna is saying. See, manufacturing, ROI, everybody's talked about is very, very important over there. The allied areas where in any manufacturing activity, whether it is processing of a PO or processing of an invoice, or for that matter, giving the facility for the worker on the shop floor to interact with his HR so that he doesn't lose time by going over there and spending more time. These are the allied areas which, as you said very correctly, the low-hanging fruits, where the adaptive use of technology can be very effectively done. It is being done also. It's all solution-based, low cost, but in the end, not directly to the manufacturing, but overall business effectivity and the reduction in cost is tremendous. That is what is important today, is that where can we reduce the cost of the profitability of the total organization.
Very good point.
I just want to say this, that because in steel business, the most critical thing for pricing and cost is the business intelligence. You'd be surprised to know that the way the stock positions of, let's say, coal or iron ore in China is there, that information gets filtered out. It has impact all over the world on the prices in terms of cost and the profitability. I believe with the greater digitalization or adoption of this practice is smart manufacturing, the people would have chance for more arbitrage because the information would be more solid, more authentic. Right now, they may be getting the information based on custom reports or the companies working for business intelligence. So this is the one area where I think steel business can definitely benefit. But as Ullas and others have mentioned, it's a continuum basically. So there is not an end point. Every company can look at it, not even the industry. Every company can look at it where they can have help from the data and analytics, and that can be done. For example, in our steel plants, the key thing is we know something is going wrong, but the person who is supposed to take action is not sure what action to be taken. So if through digitalization that solution can be given, that okay, this is the problem which is coming and this is the solution. That kind of what people call augmented human intelligence, the AI becoming kind of augmenting human intelligence. So those are the areas I believe we can move on, and there is no end point, so everybody can adopt wherever they are and start the journey.
Excellent point.
Just two different perspectives. We are a manufacturing kind of an industry, and we are also these in a way seller of a lot of these digital solutions. We are world's largest ultra high frequency RFID manufacturer. And what have we seen now is possibly you were mentioning that the sense of urgency in terms of where the technology can benefit business is highest ever, especially in the ecosystem that we are living in. We invested in India after US and Europe in creating an intelligent laboratory where you can get into an immersive experience of how technology can help like RFID. So clearly, there is a lot of traction for adopting technology. I think the question that we had that whether the organizations should go for technology for the heck of good technology or it's going to serve, our experience has been that you've got to be very alive to what is available in the ecosystem, and at the same time list your pain points of the business and see if these pain points can be alleviated with the help of technology. And there would be many, I think, in customer experience, there are many pain points that if you are closer to customer, you're possibly able to identify and solve without significant intervention or investment rather. The third perspective I wanted to bring in is there are unconventional areas where technology can help big time. We kind of recruited our first ever non-human employee. This is a chatbot, this is a bot which engages with the employees on the real-time basis, and I'm able to take a pulse of the organization not once in a year through an engagement survey, rather on real-time basis, and know who are the possible employees who are sitting on the fence in terms of not being happy, whom do I need to connect on the regular basis, and whether the mood of my organization is stable and going up or there is some red flag for me. So I think there are also areas in the human resources side of the business which can help improve the employee engagement big time.
Very good. Ullas, your word, and then I'd also like to comment.
Sure. So I think let me put a little perspective here, and also put some kind of challenges also, which is a smart.
I want to tell one point to Ulhas before. There is a danger, another, when we are talking about the smart manufacturing and the technology, please be careful how much the country will be submerged by the import of the technology from abroad at the cost of our own country. If we develop our own technology, we encourage our own technology. The boys and girls who are good coming from the colleges, young brains, they can develop and they can do it. We may not reach that, but let us not try to copy at the cost of our country. So companies like PwC should also watch how much technology is coming into the manufacturing and other places at the cost of our own here, the base.
Yeah, okay. So let me answer that first because that's a very important and critical also. So I think the rather I see today kind of a startup, the startup ecosystem has really helping organizations. I see the lots of work we do in PwC also. We have around 300 startups which we join hands with. When we go to the client, we take this startup, brilliant minds, fresh graduates from the good colleges, and the way they solve the problem, the way they see the problem, the way they use the technology, amazing. I've seen some of the problems which are actually industry has not solved for many years, and these people have solved like this because they come with a fresh mind, they use the technology, and they are not biased. So I think, I believe this entire smart manufacturing, all these technology waves, the way India has, when IT was kind of booming, the way service industry in India, the way I think Pawan talked about it helped GDP, I strongly believe these waves are going to help more and more startups. Gone are the days where people come out of the IITs and they want to go to the best of NMCs. Today they take a pride that I'm working for a startup. I think that's the thing. So I think that's what I would like to first.
Taking off from there, one has read a lot of vision documents coming from countries like Germany, countries like Japan, countries like UK, countries like United States not included, but countries like China, for example. Is there a overall vision document for IR 4.0 for India? Or are there only limited niche pockets of enthusiasm and people saying, hey, we'll go into the next realm of prosperity because of this thing? Where is the guiding principle? Where is the guiding direction from anybody who has studied this subject in its entirety?
We'll come to that. Okay.
Clearly, there is a at least this government digital vision is driving. I see so many PSUs coming with the digital vision as and the consulting companies they are into. As we know, at least I know 2 of them which are already live cases also, where all these PSUs, large PSUs, coming with the digital strategy roadmap. They are defining their digital strategy roadmap for next 5 years. Where are we today? They want to do the assessment. Where are we today? Where are the global companies are, and what digital interventions are putting. So that change is always starting.
I service all the public sector undertakings in the oil and gas sector. Not one of them has a clue about their vision and direction for digitalization. I service the Saudi Aramco in Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. They have a vision document. They talk about prescriptive analytics versus advanced analytics after 5 years versus predictive analysis and diagnostic analysis. Everything is milestoned. Everything is directionally planned when it comes to Saudi Aramco, when it comes to Sonatrach in Algeria. ONGC, where is the vision?
So let me
answer that. So I think somewhere along the line, are we perhaps getting overexcited about 4.0? Whereas we have not even crossed the threshold of 3.0 very successfully until now. I represent an industry where the tolerance of a product is plus minus 5 millimeter. And I know some competitors who have dug their own grave by investing heavily into equipment which gives them a tolerance of plus minus 5 microns. You don't need plus minus 5 micron. You've got machines which interact with a supercomputer, but the ERP system doesn't support that. You have decision makers who need the assistance of a secretary to open their email box, and then they take decisions about the future of IT. So somewhere along the line, artificial intelligence, somewhere along the line, IoT, somewhere along the line, all these have to be optimized in terms of adoption for the whole country to move forward. And one last point about employment, unemployment, skills, and the need for skill development and reskilling of people who have given their certain blood of 20, 25, 30 years to the industry. Craftsmen, what are you going to do with them?
Okay, so I think my...
Now let him answer, and I'd also like to step in here. Okay.
Hopefully I will answer most of these, okay, and I also want to take a kind of a final view here. The most important, there is a confusion because we are in change. It's going to we are in change. The change hasn't happened. It's like very easy to talk about 1.0, 2.0, 3.0. They have happened and we can now analyze what historically. Currently, we are in the change. We don't know the end point. And hence, when you are in journey, there are going to be some confusion. There are going to be some failures because if you look at history also, there will be, when you talk about 100 years from 1.0 to 2.0, there must be lots of failures, correct? So those are even. So here also, I think, let's agree that we are in change. And from that perspective, who will write? The people who understand this change, and again, I want to take a little contradictory view because one of the constraints I see in India, we are not able to really ride the wave is because the ROI. Because what's happening today, they're looking at today. Are we looking at tomorrow? Are we ready for tomorrow perspective? So ROI today, if I'm investing in something, and sir gave a very good example that they have one new factory which is fully equipped and the old factory which is not equipped. And at some time, when they found out the efficiency, and because of that, some change happening environmentally, because maybe the skilled manpower is not available, you may find that the factory which is more digitized is the one which is more efficient, and that may come after 5 years or 10 years. Today, they may be at par. But that change is already started, correct? So it's like a phasing out and phasing in phenomena, and we are into that phase. So I think it will evolve. As a part of it, for sure, some of those aggressive decisions may go wrong because we don't know how it is evolving. But anyone has a choice not to. we don't have choice. Absolutely. You don't have choice. I think just to give an example, the most important topic about how you will attract the talent. One of the days where people will stay in, I give example of 20 years, 30 years, so I'm so experienced operator I have, because the doctor, he joins and he retires from my organization, gone. Here people are 2 years, they're restless. They want something new. So when you have so much of change coming, unless and until you have a systems which has laid better technology, you will not able to manage that change. The moment a person resigns, new guys come, if you don't have those training simulators or those AR, VR kind of devices, you will not able to train the new guy quickly and manage it. So from that perspective, I think the change is happening. It's here. I agree. Each industry, we need to have a different pace. Each industry need to adopt based on what, that's why we talk about, do a digital metric assessment kind of study, look at where are we today, look at where we are, do have outside in view, how the ecosystem is changing is very important. The ecosystem is all, when I say ecosystem, vendors, my customers, everybody. But it has to kind of, you have to start your journey on that pace. I think the market will define. That's the way I look at it.
Okay. So I'm thinking that as cavemen, there would have been a few groups of people. So imagine one group of cavemen sitting around a fire, enjoying the fire, looking at another group of cavemen rolling a stone wheel round thing up and down a hill and saying that it's a cool toy, but it will be nothing like fire, you know. So this group is thinking that that group will be nothing like fire, but actually the wheel also evolved to be something like fire. So when I was just drawing this, that when a technology is triggered, there is a peak of inflated expectations. Then there is a trough of disillusionment, which is where we are. Then there is a slope of enlightenment and plateau of productivity. Those people who will disembark anywhere here will miss this plateau of productivity. This is what our industrial revolutions have been telling us. Henry Ford, when he brought in this assembly line, other manufacturers said, oh, he is Henry Ford, we cannot bring it. And some detractors even said, this is not his own technology, he has got it from a slaughterhouse, which is correct. He got it from a slaughterhouse, the assembly line. But eventually everybody had to ape the profiting and high-rising Ford. And that time, the world was not so interconnected. Today, the world is very interconnected. If the job will not get deconstructed and part of it will not go to a bot here, the bot from Germany will take it. So, this is an omelette which cannot turn back into eggs, I feel. It cannot be turned back into eggs. This is my feeling. And I am also trying to remember, during when the computerization came also, my Nanaji, he was a contractor and he had a Muni who used to do his barikata. Okay. So he was clear that this will not affect this. But today his next generation all work on Excel. So it takes time for the technology to evolve, and people are now saying that man is a technological being. And they are also saying that technology is also political, which means those countries which will not be able to handle technology or which will get out of the bandwagon will also lose politically. We think that how technology can be political. Just imagine a bomb in somebody's hand, a gun in somebody's hand, a 3D printer which can print a gun. So I fully agree with this point that a 5-course meal may not be affordable to us, but maybe we can start with an appetizer depending on which industry we are from, or maybe just a la carte depending on which industry we are from. We spoke about predictive analytics. Now there are companies, I know of one company on whose board I sit, their particular parts, there are a few parts in their machines, manufacturing machines, which if they wear out, then the whole machine stops. And there is a big lead time and there is also a big investment required in that part. So they are willing to bring in sensors to assess the wear and tear so that they can in time order, so that they do not block too much of their working capital, as well as have no dry spells of production. So which are the companies which are working at this cutting edge? Let me tell you one company, of course, PwC and others, and whether big or small, one company which is working at the this edge is Accenture. If you'll ask me what is the R&D budget of Accenture, $700 million they are putting around these technologies. And their prediction is quite similar to what Ulhas is saying, that come on the table, afford what you can eat. If you have nothing to afford, just see what is the cuisine being served, so that tomorrow you might be able to, you should not be left behind. And another point he said, confusion is good. Actually, I very much appreciate there's so much confusion around the table, because confusion leads to growth. Clarity is more stagnant. And one more point I would like to say is the $8 billion is the loss which unscheduled maintenance brings to airlines. Do you know 10% of all delays is because of unscheduled maintenance? $8 billion is the loss because of this. Plus the stress, plus the missed meetings, inefficiency. So maybe the airlines industry may go for it very fast, and it's already going for predictive maintenance and everything like that. But maybe the spectacles industry or the confectionery industry, etc., or even the liquor industry. The liquor industry is going on this already. They are having sensors now in their bottles as to in how much time they are consumed after they are bought. So to get the advertising cycle ready. But let us, this is my feeling, let us look at it with an open mind. So far, all the technology revolutions which have come up with a lot of detractors. But they have prevailed. Because when the whole world changes, as Mr. Mudgil also said, that China, when it lowers the price on steel, it affects the entire market. That means if I will not be able to match that productivity which China is giving, then others will buy from China rather than from me, which is a greater cause for unemployment than techno-unemployment. Any other points, please? This is my view.
I would just like to build on what you said. Where is the choice?
The
competitive forces are going to ensure that people do adopt technology. To give an example from my own organization, in the space that we operate, we are roughly 50-60% of share. A second competition would be a 54 size. So we are pretty large in this space. We started a service wherein the customer can track the shipment on the mobile live, quite similar to Swiggy or Zomato, possibly among the first company to do in B2B space. I'm sure our competition now has no choice but to roll out a similar service within no time. So I think competition is definitely going to ensure that everybody in that ecosystem adopts technology.
Final point for me, I do agree, walk before you run. Taking baby steps is always a good thing. Just because it's the buzzword doesn't mean you have to dive in and soup it up with, the rims and the tinted windows and the subwoofers in the back. Get it running first. So that's one thing I would recommend doing. Definitely understanding what your needs are and trying to just chip at it, right? You'll start to see digitalization will impact your business positively. A good use case was Kodak. They lost their business because of not being digitalized and following all the other competition out there. The other thing is we haven't talked a lot about data here, which I think it's a missed point. There's indirect and direct customer experience, and you can take data and really make a lot of money off of it. At the same time, improving the customer's experience, and they don't even know. some of the leading companies in the world are using data at its finest, from advertising. I heard that come out of your mouth. From being able, I was standing on stage talking about the gas sector, and the manpower thing is a big issue there. They're saying, well, why do I need to do technology? The man's cheap. I can throw the resources out there. But what if you can take the data from your smart gas meter and be able to provide it to the Swiggies of the world and let them know that this person is home right now, or this person is not home right now, or this person cooks often and he doesn't cook often. So from a manufacturing perspective, what kind of data can you do behind the scenes that can be a new revenue source for you, that you can sell that data to somebody else that can leverage it to improve their products, their customer experiences? And then also on the customer side, if you've got a Wi-Fi enabled geyser, right, maybe they don't turn it on, but what else can you do with that Wi-Fi and sensing that can enable you to take that data and sell it for revenue elsewhere? So those are things that I haven't heard a lot of, but people that are doing well overall in the world are figuring it out. And I would strongly recommend, I don't have the proper subject matter expertise in your different sectors to understand how to enable you with the data. I know from a technology, I can give some hints, but I would look at it and say, okay, what does this mean? In the holistic picture.
Actually, very strong implications on user privacy, on our users and data.
Well, you have to always be careful to that.
We sit on about 500 million users' data at any point of time, and we know exactly where they are, what they're using, what apps they have, etc. But cross-pollination, like you're suggesting, Ali, is an extremely contentious issue. The whole norms around secrets that came in Europe, for example, and elsewhere in the world.
It's all about agreements.
So it's extremely critical. The user knows what you're going to use the data.
So a good example in Philadelphia, it was a tour bus company. They wanted to understand where the bus was traveling and where it would stop at the different tour sites often. Then they wanted to know how many people were sitting on the bus. So they put a sensor under each seat. Then they got permission from the city. They got the data company, got permission from the tour bus company, right? It's always about permission. They got permission from the city. They got permission and started talking to the museums. They started talking about the guys that are doing the food carts on the side of the street, just to see if they're interested in how many people are coming to each stop and when they get off and when they don't get off. And this data ended up creating new revenue streams for the tour bus company, from museums, from food guys, from restaurants, but it always was under the assumption of permission is there, right? I'm not saying to go steal data and, completely screw with privacy laws. But if you do it smart, you can take data and create revenue off of it with permission.
Also, permission and data retention for short periods of time, aggregating data, anonymizing data. That is the way forward. Niti Aayog is already moving on that with a company like PwC. They're already moving on that. And so I come to the last question here, and I will raise it to Anil, who has been at the cutting edge of automation. How should the industry prepare itself? And more importantly, what are the generational issues, educational issues, and interdepartmental issues which you face when you automate like you have done in some plants?
Quickly, I'll reply in three parts. The first is the pace of change. In the evolution of the human mankind, we have seen the changes in the last 130 years. Right from the automobile down to the aircraft, people going to the moon, and in the last 15 or 20 years, what we have seen with the smartphone, we have lived with the conventional kind of phone, telex, fax, everything we have seen. But the pace of change is so fast, and everybody wants to copy that. And there is a gap between the mindset of the people, those who are above 50 and those who are millennials, including me. I've got two young sons, those who have done engineering, I have not done. But I have done human engineering. So leaving aside that mindset has to be there, change. Any technology change, the 50 plus, pardon me from the people, those who are ready for the change and all, but they take their own sweet time to change. And technology is one of the biggest hindrance. Most of the people are using the smartphone, and pardon me, just by using some of the features, we assume that we are using it as a smartphone, but we are not using this as a smartphone, but we call it as a smartphone. So there is a gap between thinking of a person those who are deciding, like for putting up a plant, our new plant, there was a huge gap. And the millennials, they want it. So at times we take a decision, assuming कि यार अगर करना कर लेते हैं कोई बात नहीं. पता नहीं है जैसे आपने बोला कि one doesn't know even to open a mail and you want a secretary to open the mail and the person is taking a decision. Second thing is that there is a gap between people those who are from the CRI, research and development, manufacturing, and the third important is the IT. Pardon me, those who are from the IT. These people, by using this data security, privacy, these kind of things, we wanted to have a collaboration for the integration of the lighting. For the last 1 year, we have not done it because the IT fellow is saying, no, the data would be, like you said, like geyser, data would be at that point, how the customer can do it and all. So IT integration of these three has to be very, very collaborative. The research and development person knows what it is. Manufacturer knows how to manufacture, but the integration of this third person has to be very, very important. And the last point which I want to mention is that we have been talking about Industry 4.0, but you have rightly said, what about the Education 4.0? I go to the universities also for the where I see the people, those who are into the teaching, the professors, they also have got a mindset. They want to run it with the old kind of system what they have been running for the last 20, 30 years, and they don't want to change. And our political system or our education system also doesn't want to change. It will take another decade for us to change it or not. It is now on the part of the industry, and I have been talking to these professors that you people come to the factory. You have not in your generation seen even the factory. And the factories in the last 15 years have dramatically changed. I have seen the tinker shops, in the vendor shops and all. And now our factories are now the world-class factory, and we proudly say that we are an Indian multinational because we are investing into it. And why we should, and this education we will have to do it because our country Prime Minister have been saying, make in India. I normally say that people should remain in India. If we have good technology, if we have good factories, why should our children go abroad and work for those US or European countries or other countries when we can retain them within our country and do it and all? And we have got many other problems like agriculture is there, dairy problem is there. There are many problems which they have to resolve rather than making only drones and the other kind of supercomputers for us and all. We have got even water problem is there, sanitation problem. Let people work on that. So that kind of a thing has to be there.
So I think that was a very good close. Let us just open with an open mind and listen to what he has said and what others have said, and let us consider the other person's perspective to perhaps come to an even better decision on whether, how much, when to approach smart manufacturing. Any last points?
No, it's a really nice discussion. I think so much of a wealth of experiences sitting here, and which the diverse clearly brings out the point I talked about in terms of there is a confusion, it has to be there, and confusion is good, as Pawan said rightly, but it's happening. It's there, it's happening. It's all, each one of you need to take it, what it makes for sense for me, adopt it, and take it forward. Those who are early in terms of the assimilating that entire information and making requests, and we always talk about data was information. Most of the things we are still our data, or very leakable information. If you really just say WhatsApp, Facebook, and Twitter add all together, I think you know everything what's happening globally because so much of information is going there. It just you need some kind of tools and technologies to really make the information out of it. So, from my perspective, but the way I look at it, it's important that each one of you, when you go back, find out what are those 4 stages, where are we, and different functions will be at different. Some functions will be already at the horizontal collaborator, some will be at digital novice, and how can each function we take to the digital champion, and that's our job. So most company, when they define what is digital champion for me and start that journey, I think they will focus a lot.
I think wonderfully summed up.
One question, in fact, possibly to learn from others' experience in this. For a manufacturing industry, typically, where does the largest value to unlock resides? Is it in supply chain? Is it in operations, or is it in customer experience in terms of an upside to revenue or downside to, or an upside to possibly SG&A or selling expenditure? Where do you see the largest opportunity lie?
Okay, let me answer it because I have kind of faced a difficult situation. I went to one company to really thought that I'll put a smart manufacturing solution and kind of they are energy intensive, so we're well prepared with those kind of stuff. And I started, stop it. What are you talking about? Energy is a 5% of my cost. I don't really care about it. Raw material, because it's basically found in steel. Raw material is the biggest cost. So if that's my 70-80% cost. Can your digital solution solve my problem? That's where I think we're helpful. Now, take this same example I can take to the more different industry, and suddenly the problem will be related to their factory operations, where because it's a legacy, because the critical equipments are there, they are failing very frequently, skills are not there. Suddenly for them, how I can have predictive maintenance. So I think this has a very different and very within a segment also very focused on each of the factory. Industry to industry. I have seen within two industries, and I always give this example. I have seen some of work with some of them who are putting billions of dollars into the digitization. And I know the apparel industry who are saying that, oh, we are okay with that. And if sometimes I read it out as of today, where they both are who is right, okay, the time to time. For each industry, this is very interesting. And I always, so when I always go and talk to the people, I always first understand which is the cost spend, which is the highest cost spend, and incremental energy 0.51% is not going to that much on bottom line. Versus if I really make their steel procurement more effective, that exactly they know on historical data what steel they procure and what are the market rate, I think that is more benefit. So it's industry.
Yes, not only looking at the total contribution or where the main cost sits, the most obvious answer, but to give you an example of our industry where 50%, 60% of the cost sits in the raw material, which is always the case. But that's always supplied by giants who are dominant players, monopolies in their business. You can't do a shit about it. You can't negotiate at all. So the value doesn't sit there at all. While the total cost sits there, but you really can't do anything about the cost.
Controllable cost, basically.
Yeah. So it's not. So I think it's about depending, as you rightly said, it's about. But I feel generally speaking, I think to answer your question, I think the answer normally lies in the customer experience. I think is what I have seen that when you focus on the customer and you improve that moment of truth and the experience, and if you can enable technology to achieve that, is when you really see value coming.
For sure. I think I do ask this question in most forums that I visit similar nature. Now, possibly I have done many rounds globally on this. Another area that I do hear is supply chain. I think people do see extreme amount of value lying in simplifying supply chain and hence taking the benefit of reduced inventory, embedded inventory, of course, to support the sales.
Yeah, I agree. And where does the product sales actually come to know?
So absolutely, agile inventory management and the ability to handle a changing supply and a demand. On both the supply side, you have a variation. On the demand side, you have a variation. The manufacturing which sits in the middle, if that is able to handle both the supply side and demand side, and optimize my inventory, I personally feel that is where a lot of value is.
That's a good one. So I also have a view on that, but I'll share with you separately, Pankaj. It was great, super. I'm so happy that the leadership of companies is so aware, and both the sides of the argument were very well articulated. I hope we are all going smarter about smart manufacturing. At least I'm going a little smarter about smart manufacturing. Thank you very much, Ullas, and Ali, and everybody else, and Anil.
We'll take a smart decision, not a fast decision.
Well done, well done.